Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if you all can hear me. We're having a few technical issues, so apologies for the late start. We're just trying to get the presentation up and running for you. But while we do, assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you today, hosting the third in the IWFM webinar series, Human Capital in FM, How to Preserve Value Post-COVID. I'm delighted to be joined with a superb team of panelists from differing industry sectors. We will be discussing today within their respective organizations and FM networks, the current global pandemic, and the economic situation and how it's affecting us and many of the people that work within our industry. So please allow me to introduce the panelists to you. As I said, we've got a very diverse and esteemed range of guests today. And I'm also happy to say that they're not just colleagues, but also we're amongst friends as we have been in the past two sessions. So firstly, I'm very happy to welcome Abdullah Al-Wahidi. He's the CEO of Khidma. Abdullah has over 2 decades of experience in FM, and he's been managing prominent projects such as Burj Khalifa and the Dubai Mall. Prior to joining Khidma, Abdullah held a number of high-profile roles in the UAE, KSA, and in Egypt. Welcome, Abdullah. It's good to have you joining the discussion today.
Thank you, Sarah. Glad to be here.
Great. Thanks, Abdullah. Moving on, I'm thrilled to introduce our second speaker today, who's joining us from Saudi Arabia. He'll be enlightening us with his perspective from the KSA market. Muhannad Al-Mahidi is the Managing Director of Musanada FM in KSA. He's a qualified architect and Master in Science and Engineering. Muhannad actually worked for the World Bank for 7 years, then became the VP of Real Estate for the Al Turki Group, looking after a wide range of property sectors. Welcome, Muhannad, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad to be here.
Great, thanks, Muhannad. Last but by no means least, I'm delighted to introduce Gary Sagesti. He's the Director of Big Fish Recruitment. Gary's actually been in the FM recruitment since 2004, after working for 10 years in the UK power industry. He's been in the UAE since 2010 and founded Big Fish in 2016. He's a GCC region specialist, recruiting at all levels in the FM sector. Welcome, Gary, and it's great to have you and indeed all the panelists with us for today's conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to be here.
Wonderful. Right, normally, guys, we would have an introduction whereby David will actually be presenting a couple of slides showing us what's been going on in terms of the whole strategic background of IWFM. But what we'll do, because we started a little bit late, I'll just ask you to divert directly to the website if you're interested to have a look at the information of IWFM and basically the strategies and the culture and our vision and mission and all the rest of that kind of good stuff. Before we get started, I'd like to remind the attendees this is a very interactive session by which we will be having a questions and answer session at the end. So if you do wish to pose a question to our panelists, please feel free to do so, and we'll be standing by to receive your messages. And obviously, time permitting, we'll try and get through as many questions as possible. And after each discussion point, we'll be having a straw poll to which there'll be 3 possible options for you to choose from, whichever is most suited to your answer. And as again, let me reiterate, as we've done in previous sessions, the poll is completely anonymous. Your details are not captured when answering. So please do participate, as these sessions are created for you, our audience, so we can get your input, feedback and suggestions, which we very much welcome. And lastly, before we get into the first discussion point, a recording of today's session will be released on the IWFM website, so please stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's get started. On to the first discussion point. And I'm hoping it's coming up on your screens. Apologies again, we've got some minor technical issues today. Right, we'll get straight into the discussion while we're sorting that out back end. First discussion point is, what are the best ways you know of that measure, develop and display value in human capital? And let's start with Abdullah. Let's have your views, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Human value, I mean, the human capital plays an important role in facilities management companies because our business is dependent heavily on people, and it's a service industry. You can do lots of training. You can, share the vision and mission of the organization with your people. But if it's not embedded in every transaction, it will be very difficult to display. And I guess that's why you need to continuously remind people of the vision of the company, remind people of where we want to be, remind people of the purpose of this company. Every company that operates or let's say most of the successful company, I would call it, that operates in any business will always have a clear purpose explained to its people, so that people will have a buy-in and will join that purpose and join that dream. And that once that happens, it translates into actions and activities by different people within the organization. And if you want to measure it, to be honest with you, the best way to measure it is through customer feedback. So if I go and tell people, that my vision or my value is around quality, is around clarity, is around speed, response time, customer service, and all of that, I can always preach about it. I can always do trainings, but if it's not embedded, and if people who are using the services are not seeing it, then you cannot measure it. So the best measure for this is through customer feedback, and that's how I see it.
No, absolutely. It's very important, because at the end of the day, without our customers, where would we be? Abdullah,
Exactly.
just want to ask you, do you believe that the FM industry, in comparison to other industries, has been more or less resourceful in terms of repurposing staff?
When it comes to FM, I think we've been less resourceful for repurposing staff because of two things. Mainly the regulations in the UAE, and I'll look at from a UAE perspective. The white collar and the blue collar are classified in the visa sectors. You have to be a cleaner, you have to be, a lifeguard, you have to have certain qualifications. It's not easy to swap between functions. And also, if you look at the type of functions within FM, if you are a cleaner, you cannot do an electrician job. If you are a plumber, you cannot do an HVAC technician job. So it's a bit difficult to do it. But when you go to the white collar side, I think it can be repurposed. I mean, and we've seen that, during the COVID-19 situation, some people who became call center agents, some FM professionals became, trainees, guiding junior staff on health and safety practices. So from white collar perspective, yes, it was easier to do and it was simpler. From a blue collar perspective, I think it's a bit difficult because of the specialization that exists within the industry.
The restrictions that are in place, basically. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Abdullah. Mohanad, your views, please.
Well, they're very similar to Abdullah, since it's very similar to we're in the same industry. However, I believe the blue collar and white collar factor is important as well. Since not every staff is interacting with the client himself. For example, we have a client sometimes calls directly and says, I need that hospitality guy who gives our coffee. And that really brings out the best in that person himself, regardless of the training. He's been trained, all of them have been trained, but each individual has his own, upscale. This is one. Staff retention, when you see every year and you evaluate how many staff left and how many are still there, that's also an indicator. Saudi is giving more freedom now to the staff to switch from one company to another, and giving him or her the right to switch. So there isn't the visa constraints that I'm tying them with in that factor. Another thing that we do internally, we do the employment engagement survey on an annual basis. And that goes from the labor category all the way to the seniors. And from that, you see the whole number and what percentages believe in the values of the company, how many will probably stay within the coming 5 years. And these are clear indicators from each company to see, am I doing the right work or not?
Excellent. Absolutely, and I'm happy to hear that you guys do that on an annual basis. Just to ask you specifically for the industry in KSA, do you think it's gained more traction now, and that FM has been more appreciated as a support service since COVID-19?
This is something I'd like to elaborate more on the COVID-19 case. I mean, nobody doubts that there were some industries or some heroes, I would say, came out from different industries that were there, but never seen firsthand. For example, the healthcare sector. We never felt their need until this COVID thing looked at. In addition to the police and regulating, and I'm saying it from the Saudi perspective because there was a lot of lockdown procedures and there was a lot of intercity, ban in traveling between, and the police during that area took it. Of course, looking at the hospitals, there must have been some FM company that was cleaning it. There must have been some FM company that was maintaining it. We had some of our clients who were among the companies that were out of the curfew. So they moved and traveled during the whole period of this pandemic on a 24-hour basis, whether it was in the telecom sector or the logistics sector. So we used to get calls on a 24-hour, where is this guy? Where is that guy? Where? And since it's a new sector, FM in Saudi, I mean, it's only saw full traction in the past 5 years. This COVID really emphasized more and made it very clear the need of them. So
a positive, yes. Positive out of a negative.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mohannad. Same question over to you, Gary, in terms of what are the best ways that you can or that you're aware of that measure, develop, and display value in human capital?
Yeah, I have to agree with both Abdullah and Mohannad on a couple of the points, certainly around customer satisfaction and also staff retention. Customer feedback obviously is critical. The reputation of the company is also a way of, I think, measuring the value in their own sort of human capital. A good way of doing that is, as Mohannad mentioned, taking the employee feedback is critical, and understanding your staff. Another way of developing talent is obviously to train them and then watch them progress as leaders within the business. I think that there's various ways now that companies display that. It can be through social media, which is often displayed sort of visually through human sort of recognition, and also company recognition online that we see quite often these days.
And Gary, I mean, obviously you're working throughout the GCC. Are you finding that there is more or less a difference in terms of how the individual countries are adapting to these principles?
I think it's difficult to sort of pick out one particular country across the region that maybe is different to another. I think most of it comes back to the company culture and how companies, manage it. So you see some companies do it, obviously better than others. I don't think it's really sort of country specific, but yeah, much more ingrained in the individual, in the individual company culture.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Gary. We'll go on to the first of our straw poll questions, if we can. So this is an opportunity for the audience to get involved and basically, give us your feedback. You're going to have a question pop up and there will be 3 possible answers. There you go, it's up on the screen now. So the first question is, in resource-based FM services, which do you consider measure and generate the best value? So the first option, performance-based KPIs with mobile monitoring. The second option is multitasking teams with dynamic work schedules. And the last option is input-based PPM work targets and set team sizes. I'll give you a few seconds to respond. We will publish those answers straight away. And remember, the poll is strictly confidential, as I mentioned earlier. So please feel free to answer as honestly as you can. And I'm happy to say we've got some very interesting questions coming in. I'm just going through these now while I'm waiting for, or giving you guys a few more seconds to do the respond to the straw poll. So I'm quite excited to get to the questions and answers section. I think we're okay for time. So can we please release the responses? The first straw poll question. Okay. Interesting. So about half of the audience believes it is basically down to the traditional performance-based KPIs. Quite a few, 35% is also quite significant in terms of multitasking. And a small percentage have gone with input-based PPMs. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next question. So, discussion point number 2. What examples of inspiration and innovation have you seen introduced recently to maximize the value of human capital? We'll again start with Abdullah's viewpoint, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Now, if I look at the FM industry and I look at the latest technological available tools in the market, we're talking about handheld devices. We're talking about solutions like applications such as for work order dispatchment and also for tracking activities. And also you have the traditional CAFM system, which is I would say is the major revolution in FM service delivery. For human capital and for people to be able to use these latest innovations and latest tools available in the market, they need to go through trainings, they need to go through developments, and that's where the value comes in. The moment there is a new innovation that in the market, like I said, CAFM system or new application that is issued by any organization, within Khidma, we've launched a number of applications to improve the service delivery. That requires a huge amount of training, and that's where the value comes into human capital. That they get an exposure to a new idea in the market, they get a training to be able to utilize it, and they realize the value of it later on. That they have learned something new, and it helped in improving their own skills, and that's how I see innovation and how it brings value to human capital.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, Abdullah. I mean, we're now moving into the so-called new norms of FM services. So yes. How significant do you think innovation is now at this time in FM?
Innovation in FM, to be honest with you, I think FM companies are a bit behind when it comes to technology adoption, because we're so used to doing things in the in the traditional way because of the criticality of the assets. You need strong, and I think it's to do with maintenance engineers. Usually maintenance engineers are the least people to accept change. I've read a study recently about accepting of change, and the maintenance engineers are the worst when it comes to change and adaptability. But that has to be, that notion needs to change within the industry if the industry wants to be competitive and show that it's agile and easily can respond to market demands. The COVID-19 and how volatile it was, and people how uncertain they were, that forced the organizations to quickly adopt new ideas, new norms that they're not used to. I mean, and one simple thing is being remotely working. I mean, we're so used to having attendance records and being on site and all of that. Now we're encouraging people to use softwares and technology to monitor, and we're using robots to clean and all of that. So being able to change and be adaptive to the new environment requires FM professionals to adapt, change, to become more of the early adapters of any new innovation in the market, and that would require a huge mind shift on the people and a huge change in the way they perceive new ideas and concepts. Like I said, we don't like change. We're comfortable the way doing the PPMs, but now the market with these very let's say little margins that exist today on contracts, there is a strong need for new ideas and innovation, and there is a need to adopt new ideas for any company to survive in this difficult market. So without that, adoption of technology, adoption of new ideas, adoption of new innovative solutions, companies won't be able to compete and survive in this very difficult market.
Absolutely, and as you rightly mentioned, I think the circumstances have actually almost forced companies and also clients to make these changes. Thank you very much, Abdullah. Mohanad, your thoughts, please.
My thoughts similar, but it's I look at it more in basing it on the employee and with real focus on the blue collar, if you would say. I mean, at this time of need, and I'm referring to the COVID situation, it's always these critical times where you need to comfort the staff. You need to give them all they need in terms of getting the best out of them, because there is the best. And one thing that we practiced, which is very simple, the groups of projects. So we had a WhatsApp group for every region, and we put in supervisors and some of the technicians and even some cleaners. I was in every group, so they know that what they're doing is reaching the highest authority in the company, and there is words of acknowledgement and words of motivation to them, and that really kept them going. We had some incidents of COVID-19 positive cases. However, that didn't, they were frustrated more that they weren't able to go and do their best than just to sit and relax in there. So that was also another thing that we saw in the guys. I mean, a simple thank you is more important than anything at these current situations. That's my view in terms of getting the best out of
no, absolutely staff. Yeah, for them to be recognized and appreciated, it's always extremely important. Thank you for that, Mohanad. I just want to ask you a question just to sort of regarding the employee engagement. Have you seen an increase during this time in your employees, staff, or just generally within the industry coming forward with new ideas?
Yes, definitely. I mean, ideas come when you give room for the staff. You give them comfort. It's okay to do mistakes within the within the area that they're in. So we got sometimes a proposal of someone, sir, I thought of this, why don't we do that? And that simple thing really made the difference in some cases. You'll be surprised that their supervisors never thought about it. And some of them reach a point where there isn't a solution and he just takes it to his own hands. But again, from the beginning, you gave them that room to make those decisions and get it. Now, post-pandemic, you know that this person and this person could be, placed in another region or in another position that he can make a decision more. So that's also an indicator of the abilities of each person. We have a saying in Arabic called al-haja al-ikhtira', which is the need is a creator of some, innovation. So in these time of needs, you'll find all the innovations and the solutions coming out from staff.
Absolutely, and as you mentioned, the autonomy of staff is extremely important. They have to have the confidence to be able to do that. Thank you, Mohanad. I'm guessing a slightly different perspective from you, Gary.
Yeah, it is a bit of a different one, but some similarities really to Mohanad. If I can sort of make it about big fish, we, like everyone, were sort of put into lockdown and all had to set up offices from home. Everyone became aware, I think, almost instantly without having too much sort of explanation of the requirement for people to go a little bit sort of above and beyond what was normal. Working hours really kind of ended to a point where people no longer sort of logged on at 8 and off at 5. We kind of worked 24/7, and even in some instances, people were working weekends without even questioning or asking. So that was great to see. Again, group WhatsApp was set up to sort of communicate, and Microsoft Teams meetings were introduced a lot more. I realize it's not a new thing, but it's something really we never really had to use before. When it came to our clients, I mean, we had, I think, 6 people due to fly to one country in the Middle East, all to start work on a new contract in April. That didn't happen. Those people, the majority of those are still waiting to join. The client sort of changed their requirement to looking for only local people in city. So we had to sort of adapt to that and try and sort of coach the candidates through a new way of applying for a job. So face-to-face interviews as well are sort of, you know, finished for now, and you know, they had to then use Microsoft Teams or Zoom or any other form of media to sort of conduct the interview. So that was something that was interesting, and we sort of, you know, had to adapt to. It was all luckily we sort of negotiated our way through it with, I think, as well as we possibly could do. You know, things are slowly getting back to normal, but I think it's going to be a while before we see sort of, you know, multiple face-to-face interviews like we did before. So we're getting by with those for now. And I think it's important, you know, for at this time, because it's such a unprecedented year, I think we're all going through, that candidates prepare themselves in the right way, get familiar with that sort of technology, you know, especially as there's lots of people seeking work at the moment, and make sure they give themselves every chance in that environment to, you know, to apply and, you know, get a job. In terms of, you know, it's not like if you're face to face with a client, sometimes you can turn an interview around, but you get one chance with a Teams or a Zoom, and you have to make sure that, you know the technology, you're in a quiet location, you've got the right and treat it like a normal interview, which make sure you're fully prepared and nothing can go wrong, because there's always a chance with technology that if it doesn't go well, you might have lost your chance.
As we've discovered today, Gary, as we've discovered today, we've had a few tech issues this afternoon. It's interesting you say that, actually. I wanted to touch on the same point and ask you, how have candidates best utilized their efforts when seeking employment? And from what you've seen, do you think that employers are actually being impressed by their efforts?
I think they're impressed, but I think at the same time there's a mutual understanding that, you know, this is something very unusual, and an acceptance that you know, we're all in this together, clients and candidates alike. But at the end of the day, we all, you know, want to try and make the best of it and continue moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely all in this together. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. If we can go on to the second straw poll question. So it's another opportunity for our audience to get involved in the discussion. The question is, oh, hang on a second, what's happened? Yep, are we here? I think we've gone past. Sorry, just again, I apologize for this. We're having a few technical issues here. Right, so the straw poll 2. Question is, I've seen innovation and inspiration produce some very positive outputs by stressed people during crises. Select one of the answers, guys. Usually by self-motivated people with great ideas. Next option is only when regulations require us to make change. And the final option is rarely unless it involves resource cost saving. So again, you know, a range of answers depending on your personal perspective. We'll give you around about 20 seconds or so to answer the questions. And while you guys are busy with that, I'd like to just let you know we've got some fantastic questions that have come in from literally all over the world, not just from the UAE. And we've got people listening in from the UK. We've got some great questions coming in from India as well. So we will try and answer as many of those as we can. I think that's enough time. Shouldn't take that long to press a button. Okay, so an outstanding winner. 74% have replied by saying usually by self-motivated people with great ideas, which actually touches upon what the panelists were talking about when it comes to creativity, innovation, and giving, you know, teams their autonomy to basically flourish and put forward any innovative ideas that they have. Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the third discussion point. And again, we'll start with Abdullah. So Abdullah, moving forward, do you foresee technology used in FM being really able to replace people or to support them? And I know it's a very controversial question.
Look, Sarah, the question reminds me of in 2019. I don't know what happened exactly, but everybody was talking about AI, and that AI and robots are going to replace humans and take over everybody's job and all of that. But I think 2020, with all its problems, it has proven that this is not the reality, and you still need the human involvement to deliver the services. Now, whether a technology is an enabler or a support service, I would say it's an enabler to people, especially in not just in our industry, in fact, it's across all sectors. Technology is an enabler. Whether it's going to replace humans, I don't think so. We're too far away from having those intelligent robots that can replace humans. You still need a human at the end of the day to operate these robots. When it comes to facilities management and the use of technology in FM, and as I mentioned earlier, that we in FM usually are the late adopters of technology and innovation. But for example, if you look at artificial intelligence, which is supposed to take over from humans, you still need a human to program it. So, and it cannot operate. It's not self-learning. We're still at the very, very early stages of artificial intelligence, where it's mainly around controlled learning, I would call it, where the human involvement is required to put in different algorithms, different let's say codes, to enable the machine to detect that there is a possible failure coming in, and do that or deliver the predictive maintenance that everybody is talking about and looking for, and it's considered to be the new trend. Like I said, so in simple terms, I don't think it's going to replace humans. In fact, it's going to be a tool to support the delivery of FM services. It will enhance people's capabilities through the training that they will have to go through to be able to use these latest technologies, and it will give them a competitive advantage over others who are, let's say, behind in terms of technology adoption. And that's why I say that FM professionals need to change and need to adapt technology faster than the current speed in order to gain that competitive advantage, sustain growth, and be able to meet customer expectations and demands. Customers today are taken over by iPhones and the speed of the internet. And when you tell them that I'm going to take a day or two to fix your problem, they don't have that patience. They want an immediate response. They want you to be able to come and even before a problem happens, they want you to predict it's going to happen. And that all requires technology. There's so much you can do with human brain, but you need the technology, and I see that they complement each other. They don't replace each other, they complement each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're talking about the sense of kind of employees maybe feeling a little bit intimidated at the moment. Do you think there is a general consensus amongst employees that they are intimidated by developing technologies? And if that is the case, how can we ease their concerns?
If there is any intimidation caused by technology, it's because of the features, so much features and so complicated IT solutions available. And I always tell people that there is a disconnect between IT professionals who come up with these technologies and the FM professionals who use them. So you need that connection to happen between the two companies, between the two sectors, to be able to develop a product that does not intimidate people. The IT guys can develop and come up with ideas and give you a very good solution, but it doesn't meet the requirement of being able to respond quickly and do things on time. So if any intimidation will happen, it's because of the disconnect between the two. You get a system that has so much features and you don't know how to use it, and the utilization for it is very low, and you need to bring in somebody to teach you how to use the other modules available. And that's I see where the reflection happens.
I mean, we see that it's a common thing now. We see that really across the board, where you've got all of these sophisticated systems. Either they're not interpreting the information correctly, there's no compatibility, or they're just not being utilized to their full potential. And it's a very interesting issue. We could discuss it for hours. But thank you, Abdullah. Appreciate your feedback there. Mohanad, sorry, your thoughts, please.
Okay, I think it's an enabler, or you could say it's a support to the human factor, not a replacer. You know, every company, especially on the FM side, it's a manpower industry. So you have the operation people who are, you know, just simple people, the ones that do the cleaning, the technical, the changes, and you have the people in the finance, support services, HR and procurement. And these services or these technologies are as good as the input that's being done into them by the individuals. Now, it might not replace, but I would say make things more efficient, a second eye, let's say in the finance, in the payroll, in the some procurement items, but as replacing it in the core business, which is the 85% cost of every FM company to an extent, which is the manpower, the blue collars who are on the ground, or I would say during the COVID.
I think we lost Mohammed, maybe.
Yeah, I think we've lost Mohanad. Okay, we'll come back to him. Again, I really apologize to the audience. We're having some technical issues today. There's a sandstorm in Dubai. I'm going to blame it on the sandstorm.
No, I guess, Sarah, this is a good example how technology cannot replace humans. You still need that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Abdullah, 100%. I mean,
So
FM is it's a people business, you know. I mean, it can never be taken over by technology. We're going to try and bring Mohanad back in. In the meantime, can we go over to you, Gary, on your thoughts about this?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a complete technophobe anyway, so I hope it doesn't replace us eventually. And it's not great for recruitment either. But I think that it would, you know, eventually it's going to replace and support both. That's my view on it. We've gone from, you know, especially in this region, sort of manpower supply. Now we're looking at performance-based contracts. With the introduction of technology, I would expect it still to reduce the size of companies, if you like, more and more, whether that's white collar, blue collar, but I would expect to see, you know, companies getting smaller in terms of headcount with the introduction of technology. Abdullah will know a lot more about this than I do, but even with the implementation of condition-based monitoring that can record data without the need of human interaction. There's automation in airports already for cleaning and other sites that have replaced people. So I think we're seeing it, but maybe not quite as much as in other regions or other continents. I also expect to see it in high risk areas, possibly where there's security concerns. I actually spoke to one of my clients yesterday, and he commented that they'd recently installed AI equipment into a government laboratory where they were doing mass testing for COVID-19. And that was to reduce, I guess, the amount of people who were going to be working on that site. So there is an example there already in the UAE of technology sort of replacing humans.
Very interesting. And, you know, in terms of that, have you actually witnessed a noticeable shift from companies that are more keen to invest in tech rather than in manpower?
In short, not really, not yet.
Good sign.
There are signs, though, that it's moving that way, and I've mentioned it before. You know, companies are asking us more and more now to find tech-savvy people, people who understand technology, who understand or want to bring innovation to the business, and that's something that we are getting asked to find more and more frequently.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Sorry, Mohanad, we lost you there briefly. Do you want to just finish your point?
Yeah, I just came in at the end where Gary was saying that it would reduce some of the, I would say, support functions in an industry, in the FM industry. However, the operational side, I believe it wouldn't.
Yeah.
You would still need manpower. It would reduce a very minimum, but to replace fully or automate. I mean, COVID-19 is an example. You know, everybody forgot about that technology and just focused on people. Where's this guy? Where's this guy? And this is where we are today. So, in brief, I don't believe it would replace at all.
I think, Sarah, it's a matter.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of time. It's not okay. It will happen one day, but is it going to happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Nobody knows. I am for the opinion that it's going to happen in the next 25 years or 30 years because technology is expensive, especially the AI technology, and also the cost to implement and train is huge.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is, and also there's a big factor that we haven't really talked about today. It's also very much involved on the asset owners have to be involved in the investment in technology, you know, as well as the FM companies. And like you said, it's going to be a long time. Until we see sort of 10 or 15 robots replace 50 or 100 cleaners. But I do believe it is coming, but at a very long time in the future. Thank you very much for your points, gents. We'll go on to the final straw poll question. So back to the audience to get them involved. Last question is, within my network or organization, I see new technology being adopted in service delivery processes, equipment, and systems. So the first option is quickly, readily, efficiently with matched training. We'd like to make improvements, but capital is tight. And the last option is no spending allowed. We're cutting back all round. So that really, sums up what we've just been talking about. So we'll give you a few more seconds to answer those questions. And I'm just getting swamped with questions. We're coming up to the Q&A section, guys, so I'm getting absolutely swamped with questions. I'm looking forward to firing a few of these. We're talking about AI, so we may as well start with something related to that. Shall we release the responses, please, if we can? Ah, interesting. Bit of a split. So only 15% actually said there's no spending allowed, we're cutting back all round. I had a feeling that might have been a little bit higher. I'm pleased it's not. Thank you very much for all those who've taken part. And what we'll do, we'll actually start with the questions. I'm just trying to bring up some stuff on my screen. You're just going to have to bear with me, guys. I do apologize. We are having some technical issues today. And like I said, I'm blaming it on the sandstorms that are happening in Dubai. We have had a question from Saif, who's actually in Delhi. And he wants to know if there are any collaborative approach that could contribute or migrate the consequence of COVID-19 crisis. And I think, when he means the collaborative approach, maybe he's talking about other industries that are involved in FM. I'd like to ask Muhannad the question. Is there anything that we can be doing, collabing with other industries that can sort of mitigate the consequences?
Well, mitigate the consequences is a bit difficult, I would say, under the current circumstances. I think the support that you can look into all collaboration, there was a lot of support between many FM companies and many government or semi-government divisions or entities in terms of sanitizing. There were some CSR collaborations as well with the municipalities and sanitizing some of the ATMs within the city, and that was on a free basis. Some of the streets and facades of some buildings as well, since nobody knew that they were really carriers of that virus or not. So this would be more of the CSR. Collaboration could work with some other FM companies joining together in expanding their network and doing more sanitizing and supporting and cleaning facilities, hospitals, for example, or emergency, external areas. But I think this is where I think something that we've done and seen it in Saudi a lot.
Excellent, thank you. I'm just going through the questions. We've got a few questions that I think actually we've answered in the conversation related to AI and automation. I've got a question for you, Gary. It's specific for recruitment agencies from Mohammed. He wants to know how recruitment agencies balance the depression in salary scales due to the economic situation. Basically, there's been a salary reduction. So the question I'm interpreting would be the new sort of scale of salaries. How are you communicating that with the candidates, if it exists at all?
Well, I think people just need to be realistic in this current market. And I think they need to have an understanding that maybe, the economy is a little bit down at the moment. We do expect it to pick up. But a lot of the people that we talk to are expats who are, outside of their home countries. And, it's a conversation really about, being realistic. It may be a short-term thing, but salaries maybe aren't what they were, or they certainly aren't now in a position to be asking for huge increases like they may have done 5, 10, 15 years ago. And that's regardless of the country that you're in. Or regardless of the country that you think you might want to go to. So really, it's just about, I think, having that sort of realization and being realistic about the marketplace, and then making a decision as a candidate on whether you feel like it's a good time to move or not. If you're in a position where you have to move, where obviously a lot of people are at the moment, then I think it's all about being flexible and realistic about the marketplace and accepting it. I mean, if it's across the board, then that's something I think people just have to take into consideration and decide whether it's right for them and their families in some cases.
Absolutely, thank you, Gary. I've got a question for Abdullah. It's not specifically for you, Abdullah, but I'm going to ask you the question just because it's your chance to speak. It's from Thomas. He's talking about AI in FM. He's saying AI in FM is still a long way to be replaced. To replace, sorry. Maybe the issue of Internet of Things in FM is more viable. What is the panelists' view on the Internet of Things? So we'll direct that to you, Abdullah.
Internet of Things and AI are almost the same thing. AI is the brain. Internet of Things are let's say the nerves gets you the information from your hand and body and all to the brain. So these are like the Internet of Things is your nerve system, and artificial intelligence is your brain, basically. They're all together. Now, yes, is it far away from implementation? It is far away, because again, we are still at the early ages of artificial intelligence, where you have controlled learning, where you have to feed in the algorithms needed for every system that you have in the building to be able to predict problems. And then the next question will be, how accurate is the prediction that the machine comes up with? And that we need to test it, and have multiple codes developed and continuously monitor until you reach to a certain accuracy level that can be rolled out to say that it is possible now to remove the human being involvement from the system. It's like, I mean, I would compare it to the license plate recognition system. In the early days, you used to have a guard next to the gate, and to open the gates for certain people to come in. And then we had the system, and then the accuracy of the capturing the plate numbers and open was limited. And then through time and changes in the technology and having better processors and faster ones, enabled the system so that nowadays it's seamless. You enter the parking, you leave the parking without any issues. And the same thing will happen to AI. Now, is it going to happen tomorrow? The answer is no. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It needs a lot of investment, and FM companies don't have the capacity to invest. And that goes to the second question, or the last question that in the poll. FM companies don't have the money to invest It's driven by clients mainly, and unless the FM company sees a great potential in investing and does a calculated decision in investment, I see most investment will come from clients.
Absolutely, it's a huge investment for clients, and this is why, I mean, I'm always such an advocate for the long-term contracts, because the longer the term of the contract, the more you can invest in it, right? So, you know, it's a conversation that really has to be involving and initiated by the clients, because they're going to be the ones that benefit from it ultimately.
If I can add something, Sarah.
Yes, please. No, please go ahead.
There's, I mean, just an example that we've seen as well is the energy efficiency and energy reduction in projects. And we've had examples where the projects are, you know, a client wants to reduce their energy, wants to reduce that. Of course, we bring the right, you know, consultants, and we start working with them in doing that. And that's an investment of three to 5 years. That's in support to Abdullah's thing. The minute you show them the investment amount and the years of depreciation and the saving in the long term, he starts rethinking it 10 times and then just backing out from it. So they choose to still spend what they have instead of taking a risk on something that might end within 3 to 5 years. And I'm saying maybe this region for now. I don't know about. I know the UK. Some you know, some facilities have done it. However, it's still a cost matter driven by the client. But again, they think 10 times before putting it, and most probably they will back out from investing that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as we, sorry, go ahead.
On the same note, though, we talk about automation, and more often than not, in what I've seen, if you enter a parking area, a mall, you have an automated system, but you still have somebody there who's working for a security or an FM company to put your ticket in the machine for you. There's an obvious cost saving there, right, for a client straight away if it was fully automated.
But you know, the reason he's there is because the machine is likely to break down at some point. That's probably why he's there.
No, so, Sarah, you know, I think the design was not done properly. Nobody checked with the FM engineer when designing the location for this machine, and that's why people cannot reach it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It depends on the car you drive. I've had a lot of problems. I mean, I've come across those machines. Either they're not working, and really it's out of convenience. People just can't be bothered to reach their arm out of their car. It's a lot easier just to hand the ticket to someone standing there. You know, it's convenience as well. But it's,
the cost is a drive. I mean, some car parks you park for 3-4 hours and then it's 5 dirham. It's not worth the cost of the guy who's handling that ticket when you're exiting. Unlike other countries, you know, in Europe or the US, where each parking is not less than $7 to $10, and in the long term, it does, you know, make sense of having somebody at the end of the ticket, but not at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot to do with the cost of the asset as well. I mean, we've got these extremely flamboyant buildings, huge assets here that cost a huge amount of money. But in terms of the technology that's invested to really maintain them and give people that experience that you would expect, you know, we're still quite far away from that. So I think that's it's interesting actually to have Abdullah on the panel, because, you know, he's given us a very good perspective from both, you know, a client's view and also from a contractor view. So, you know, you kind of worn both hats there, Abdullah. So it's great to have your viewpoint. I think we'll take one very quick question. We've got an interesting one regarding KPIs from Yusuf. He wants to know, do KPIs remain constant or consistent during the pandemic? Or have you found that you can negotiate new contractual agreements with clients and service providers? Anyone? I don't know who wants to take that. Muhannad?
Okay. In our case, because there was a lot of constraints driven by the government in terms of curfew time and travel time and lockdown between cities and all of that, clients were understanding to this, and some of them, you know, I would say were more understanding to reducing the time of responding to some cases, depending on the urgency. Some asked that staff would be in the building, residing in the building, in case to avoid any kind of spare parts some shops were closed, spare parts weren't convenient. So there was an understanding, a mutual understanding between the client and the service provider, us, during this pandemic period.
Yeah.
So they were changed, and they're back again.
Have you found that also, Abdullah? Is that the same with you?
Yeah, I agree with Mohanad.
Yeah.
In fact, during any emergency, what is more important is the continuity of the service than the KPI. You know, this is more important. And the safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's about it, guys. I know we've started very late due to some technical issues.
I think we can take more questions because we started late, so I think we owe the audience time.
2 more questions, yes.
You want to take more questions? Okay.
I can stay here until the end of the day.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll take some more questions. Just give me a second. Let me just. I need to find one. I think my question screen's gone. That's the problem because of the time. That's the issue, because at 5 o'clock I think my question screens. Oh, hang on a second. Let me see if I can pull them up. Yeah, no. Just bear with me a second. If I can, I don't think I can. No, I'm sorry. I think the question screen has gone. I can't see it.
Okay.
Okay, so unfortunately, we've come to the end of our session and the end of the time. I want to thank everybody for their time and for obviously everybody who was involved, the attendees, the participants. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting today's session, and I apologize for all the technical issues we've had. Just goes to prove that technology is actually not all it cracks up to be, and we do have some glitches now and again. I hope you've also enjoyed it as much as I have. Please be sure to join us for the next webinar that's going to be happening in August. I'll be providing you some upcoming dates and events for your diaries in the upcoming slides. But I'd like to sincerely thank all of you attendees, all of the participants for taking part in the straw poll questions. A massive thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing their expertise and knowledge on such a contentious subject. The UK team and the UAE support team, thank you very much. None of this would have been possible without you. I know we've had some challenges technically, but you've done a great job trying to get everything back on track. Our sponsors, a big thank you to all of our loyal IWFM UAE sponsors. So we've got Adib FM, Quality Refrigeration Air Conditioning, BFM, Mace, Tafawuk, which is an Eltizam company. On behalf of IWFM, I'd like to sincerely thank you all for your attendance and contribution today. So time is ticking on. I'm just going to give you a quick view of what's happening in terms of some of the dates for the diaries. I'm hoping that will come up on your screen. So on the 18th of August, we have the next webinar, which is number 4 in our series 2020, sorry. So that's going to be on the 18th of August, which happens to be my mum's birthday. So that's good. I'll remember that date. Next event is, I'm not sure if I can see that.
22nd.
Yes, 22nd of September, which is the 5th in the series. And I think that's pretty much it. So stay tuned. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for your participation. Sorry, 25th of September, we've got the IWFM conference in London. Good time to go to London, guys, in September. The weather's actually quite good. 13th of October is the awards. I was there a couple of years ago, had a fantastic time. So if you get an opportunity to attend that, please do. You can get some more information on that via the link here on our website. And if anybody's interested in sponsoring and becoming a corporate sponsor of IWFM, please feel free to reach out to myself or David, or even get through to us on the IWFM Region group on LinkedIn. So thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. You're going to have a very quick survey coming up, so your feedback is very important to us. So while we switch off, you're going to be having a couple of questions that will be coming up, asking you about how we can improve our survey and how much you enjoyed it. And I think that's pretty much it. So we're slightly over because we started a little bit late, but thanks again to you all, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Okay.
Thank you.